Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's scene interview. My name is Beatrice Benn, and I am a BFI Film Academy Young Programmer. This interview is part of our Film Festival season of Scene, in which we talk to young filmmakers about films that have recently had success on the short film festival circuit. The season is occurring in anticipation of BFI Future Film Festival, which is the UK's biggest film festival for emerging filmmakers, and it is taking place on the 20th of February to the 6th of March in venues across the UK and online. Today I'm talking to Harry Sherriff about his film Jeremy, A Nightmare. This won the award for Best Postgraduate Film at Bolton Film Festival. In the film, the titular character of Jeremy is faced with a threat to his job after his doppelgänger appears at his work. Combining psychological horror with dark comedy, the film takes you on into the macabre world of its titular character. Alongside Jeremy, A Nightmare, Sherriff has also worked on Jester and Date with Death, and these were all produced at his time at the National Film and Television School. So, without further ado, let's welcome Harry to today's chat. Hello.
Hello, thanks for having me. That was a really nice introduction.
Thank you for coming and taking part. So, firstly, please could you give a little insight into your short film, Jeremy, A Nightmare?
Well, I think the context of how it was made was quite important. So it's like you said, it was made at the National Film and Television School. It was you make three films at the school, and this was the second one, and they call it the Digi um, film. It's shot on digital. The first film at the school is shot on film. So the second film always feels very free and creative, and so with that spirit in mind, we set out to make Jeremy, which is a very sort of dark comedy, and yeah, it was a lot of fun to make.
Yeah, I mean, you get that sense it's quite like bizarre and just crazy, but yeah, it's very, very good. Well, just going off what you said about working with digital and film, like what is that experience like? How does it differ when you work with digital? And do you prefer digital or film when you shoot?
Um, I I'd never made a film before on film, and so it was a great experience, but it did feel slow. And there's certain ways that I work that digital just works better for me. Film can be quite restrictive when you don't have a endless budget, and and with digital, you just can be very creative and move the camera quicker, and I just respond to it better. So for example, with comedy, if you're working with comedy, sometimes things can go really well in the rehearsal, and on the first year film, sometimes we had two takes, and it just puts a lot of pressure on a performance that doesn't normally translate, or sometimes doesn't translate to the film. Whereas something like Jeremy, we shot a lot of takes, but we could do it in a quick way, and actors could improvise, and it never felt like it just felt free, and it felt right for that project. Um, but who knows? I'd love to shoot on film again for the right project, but um, yeah, I prefer digital, which I know is like blasphemy to some filmmakers.
Yeah, that's interesting because often people do prefer film, but I guess it's like got different benefits depending on the genre as well.
Yeah.
Um, so moving back to like the narrative of Jeremy a Nightmare, it's all about like doppelgangers, and they've certainly become quite popular in film. Like we have Us by Jordan Peele, Enemy from like 2013 with Jake Gyllenhaal. Um, so like what drew you to taking on this like narrative trope, I suppose, and how did you make it more unique to your film in like specifically?
Well, the whole jumping off point for the film was I went to the dentist and had like an awful experience with the dentist, and he was quite rude and like harsh. And I went back to the dentist sort of 3 weeks later for another appointment, and the same dentist I thought was really nice and was completely different. And then as I was leaving, I think he could sense that I was a bit confused or I was a bit odd with him. And he explained that he had a twin brother that works at the same dentist. So I was kind of a bit freaked out by that and sort of left, and then thought, what happens if he's actually joking and he's lying? And so then I researched it and Googled it, and he was a twin dentist. So I sort of pitched that idea at the school, and people seemed to like it, about, it being unsettling, but also being funny. So the doppelganger kind of grew from that, and then morphed into this character about that I've always wanted to do, which is this screenwriting professor.
Mm-hmm.
And I should also point out that the film was co-written by Lawrence Tratalos, and so he like me is kind of obsessed with this doppelganger trope, and there's a lot of films that we love that have it. And weirdly enough, we weren't really thinking of us or enemy. We were more thinking of adaptation, or
yeah,
other sort of more comedic doppelganger films. So, and then I guess how to make it unique, because I was sort of insecure about, oh, you're making this film about doppelgangers. I just took confidence in Jordan Brooks and his performance, and I knew that we were going to make a comedy, and so and the tone of it was going to be hopefully its own thing. So I didn't have a problem with that, then going forward with it and going, okay, let's just lean into it, and also ours didn't feel very gimmicky, in the sense that we never see them in the same frame. And that was quite important, because I liked the cheapness of it, and I liked the sort of, the oldest trick in the book, which is, you shoot the same actor, but you just dress them in different clothes. And I kind of like the fact that we weren't trying to do The Social Network with twins or anything. It was something slightly different.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I didn't really like put together that they're never in the same shot, but yeah, it's cool. So obviously you've sort of touched on the character a bit and like making it a comedy. And Jeremy, when I was watching it, I found him quite dislikable, which obviously here in the dentist story, you've got those polar binary opposites, I suppose. So, like, I was going to ask where the character came from, but obviously the dentist. So, what's like your general approach to crafting a character? Like, is it often inspired by things you've seen in real life, or like something you watch, or how do you like approach crafting one?
I think with Jeremy, I got really excited with this tone of someone going through a horrible time, but it being funny. Just because I thought that would be an experience for an audience. And so, and I find that type of humor and tone interesting. So, yeah, it was sort of from the off, it was going to be about this guy who's having a meltdown, and what are those things that are going to cause that meltdown. And I guess I'm a really big fan of the Nabokov quote, where it's like, get your character up a tree and throw rocks at them, and then get them down the tree again, or maybe not. And so Lawrence and I had a lot of fun of coming up with ideas that would make this person's life not very nice, and there was a lot of ideas that we couldn't do, for money and time and stuff, that would have made it, I think, worse for him and funnier for him. So we were going to play on a little bit more of him living in his car, which we never got the chance to fully convey in the film, but that was an idea that was floated in the script. But characters are all, they're all very different, aren't they? And I think with Jeremy, it was inspired by the dentist, but then became something completely different. And likewise with the other films, the characters are very different. And so, but he's funny, and I think the idea of dislikable is interesting as well, because I kind of laughed then when you said I found Jeremy dislikable, because I find him dislikable to a certain extent, but I also have quite a weird empathy for him.
Yeah,
But
to be fair, I did find myself rooting for him, even though he was doing
yeah,
horrible things and or like questionable things. I still was like,
yeah,
hope he like gets out of this in like unscathed or whatever. So,
no, no, definitely. I think that was also something inbuilt in the script with me and Lawrence, where we were saying, can we build it so we feel sorry for this character, but he's also doing morally
mm,
wrong things. Because I think that's then fun,
yeah,
to put the audience on that sort of uncomfortable thing where they're rooting for him.
yeah. I do like it when films sort of present that moral grey area where they're just presented in like a very human way. Um, So now I want to sort of talk about how you like open the film, because like that's a very crucial part to like perfect, because it's how you like instantly get a viewer to watch it and keep watching. And it's very like enigmatic in this film, like it's sort of black screen, the voiceover, and the tone is like immediately very clear. So like how how did you decide to begin this film? And like how do you craft openings in your films generally?
No, that's really nice to hear you say because I always struggle with openings. I think openings are so hard because you're then going back to the start of the film and going, is this doing enough? Is it conveying the tone? Is it too strange or is it not strange enough because the rest of the film is a bit odd? And it wasn't something that came instantly. It was more, it was definitely a collaboration like this whole film was. Um, and I think I think I wanted it to be overwhelming for the audience slightly, and I because Jeremy's overwhelmed, and it was always it was always this shot, this slow zoom in of Jeremy in the car having a panic attack, and sort of I found it interesting, not confusing the audience, but being over black and then hearing this noise and the sirens and then this strange noise that opens the film that feels like, is that a gunshot? Is that like a sonic mistake that's been left in? I had a lot of fun with the sound designer, Joseph Russell, and us asking each other, are we pushing it further enough? Can we go more with this, or is this enough? Because you also don't want to put the audience off and then be like, oh, that wasn't very nice, for my ears. Um, and I think the intention was the overwhelming, anxiety attack that he's going through, and then this voiceover is something that came very late, which I think Lawrence came up with because the film is about identity and about someone struggling with, who they are and their self perception, and other people's perception of them. This "I'm Jeremy," um, is this constant mantra of his that sort of appears three times in the film. So that was something that came very late, that I think now I look at it and I go, well, it would be silly not to have that. So
Mm.
that was kind of, again, creative look of, and it's always nice as well when the opening has the theme of the film.
Yeah.
And I think we did that well on this one. But it's always difficult openings because, they have to be good, especially with a short film when you've got no time to mess about.
Yeah. Yeah, you definitely just like immediately establish like the main themes and narrative like so fast. And like the stylistic nature of the film is also established very quickly, and it feels quite reminiscent of like a lot of iconic films that I've already seen. And like David Lynch is one that definitely springs to mind, more the bizarre, like dreamlike quality of the film. So what were there any like particular filmmakers you watched or took inspiration from for this film?
Yeah, I mean, so many. I'm quite bad at this because I always write down, 20, 30 influences, whether it be music or paintings or photographers or filmmakers. And I don't know whether it's a good habit or a bad habit, but it's a habit that I can't shake. And so I think, you know, Charlie Kaufman, I love. We spoke about the Coen brothers. Um, I really like this Norwegian filmmaker called Christopher Borgli, who did Dream Scenario. But he made a lot of strange short films that I really like. And then there was kind of strange internet humor. There's sort of Adult Swim sketches that appear late at night, on television, and they're kind of odd, and they draw you in and sometimes subvert your expectations. And and I guess another big one is Chris Morris's Jam, which, yeah, I just love the style of it and the humor of it and how dark it is. And we were very fortunate to get David Kahn in Jeremy, and he's to any people that love Jam, because it's quite a cult show. He plays a very strange, funny character in it. So it was amazing to, something that inspired the short film. We then got an actor from that show, which was exciting.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah,
Yeah, and also I can definitely see the like Charlie Kaufman quality of the film now you've said that.
yeah,
Um, so to talk about like more of the production of it, how did you go about making like the setting of the film? Because the architecture and like the buildings in it are very prominent and like help maintain the atmosphere and like
yeah.
the themes, I guess. So was the architecture and location an important decision for you when making the film?
Yeah, it was massive. It was a big, simultaneously with writing the script, they were sort of neck and neck, where we had very little time to write this film. We sort of had 5 weeks to write and prep the film, which is kind of insane for a short film. And so I already knew that real locations was going to be a big part of it. And then when you're building this world and this tone and this atmosphere, you then start looking at a lot of sort of, brutalist architecture and long hallways and sort of creepy spaces, and like what would be unsettling, like even if you saw it in the daytime. So the cinematographer and I, Bart Bazaz, were looking at a lot of, again, we were on Reddit looking at liminal spaces and architecture, and we knew obviously it was going to be a university, so the producer Carl Mason, who's really great at finding amazing locations out of nowhere. He found, we went on loads of recce's and we found this old disused council building. And we stepped into it and we were just like, this place is really strange and really odd. And so we were able to get that building, and we were able to shoot one day at Brunel University, which is the location where Jeremy's high up in this very strange brutalist architecture, and it feels like it's, he's trapped. Basically, that's what it feels like to me. So we were very lucky with getting one day there, and this disused council building that doubled as the same space. So it was very important. And then also something I like to do is when we recce'd the council building, Lawrence came along, because I always like to find locations where there's just too much good stuff. You go, well, how are we going to fit all this into one film? So then Lawrence would come and we would find spaces, and Bart would obviously look at certain things and go, we need to use this. So that's how Jeremy's office came about as well. That we wanted him to have a cramped office and we needed to find it, and then suddenly we found, something better than we could have built. That then we just had to dress. So yeah, the architecture was huge, and it was also in response to my first film, because my first film was almost entirely on a set,
Mhm.
which is obviously exciting and fun. But then it was nice to break away from that and go, okay, we don't have to be on a set. We can go
Yeah.
out into the real world.
So the entire film was shot on location then?
Yeah, we shot one scene at the NFTS. We used one of the office offices at the NFTS. But then besides that, it was Brunel University and then this strange building in Bracknell. We only had 4 days. We shot for 4 days on the film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you prefer shooting on location or in a set? Now you've like experienced both of them.
Um, I love locations because I love the research. I love finding them, and I like recceing. Um, and it's so exciting when they marry up. Um, but then I would love to have a budget and do you see what production designers do and the sets that get built, and they're just incredible. And to have that control as well, to have the control of lighting and sound is obviously amazing because every filmmaker's had that experience where you're on a real location and a certain sound happens, or the weather is obviously kills you. So yeah, I like to mix it up.
Yeah. So I just want to go to like the casting process again. I know you mentioned like you've managed to get one of the actors from like the inspiration behind the film and a comedian. And it's certainly a very important part of the film process because you're bringing character off the page. So what's your general approach to like finding and hunting out actors in films?
Well, I was very lucky that I connected very early on at the school. I connected with a casting director called Verity Norton, which has been such an amazing collaboration. And I wish I'd reached out to casting directors sooner. So I think that would be a piece of advice to filmmakers: is that they always, like I did, you get scared about casting directors because you go, oh, they're going to cost so much money, and you need every penny. But I think building a relationship with the casting director is great. And so Jeremy was a mixture of actors I'd already worked with before, and so I'd built a shorthand, and they'd understood the style, and then it was people who Verity put forward, and Sunil, who plays Jeremy's agent. He's a brilliant stand-up comedian and a really talented actor, and I knew that partnering him with Jordan, because they're friends and fellow comedians, Lawrence and I knew that was going to be really good. That was going to be like a strong part of the film. And then Vivian Sohn, who plays the creepy cleaning lady, I think she's credited as. I'd seen her in a few things, and she's in Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared, which I think tonally is like really odd, like up my street. So that's how we went about casting it. And yeah, can't overstate how much it's so important to a film. Casting is, it's massive.
Certainly, yeah. So now I want to just like gain a bit of insight into your career as a whole. What would you say like the biggest milestone so far has been?
Well, I started making films 10 years ago, and I got my first bit of funding from Creative England, which was on a scheme that they don't do anymore, which was called iShorts. And it gave filmmakers £5,000 to make a short film. And that was my second film, but it was sort of my first proper foray into filmmaking because I had a crew for the first time. And then carried on making films just out of my own pocket. Didn't really go down the route of applying for funding, and so I was making films for sort of £50 to £300 basically, and working with people who were willing to give up their time. And then I did an exercise that I did was I made 12 short films in 12 months. I sort of set this crazy challenge. I'd moved to Manchester, and a very good friend of mine, Ryan McMurray, sort of said, I can give you a day, a month to make something. And he never meant a day every month, but I took him literally and said, oh, why don't we do 12 in 12 months? So I feel like that was a very big moment for me because, it made me a filmmaker, I think. I'd not made stuff for a couple of years, and then I did that. And then I made a web series the following year, which got optioned by a production company. So that was the first time I was paid to write a script.
Yeah.
Um, and then getting into the National Film and Television School, I made a film for £500 called Harry's Not Okay. And it got me a BAFTA scholarship, which paid for my tuition at the NFTS because I wouldn't be able to afford it. And then just as of September, I've shot my debut feature film, and I was 35 when we shot the feature film. So that's my 10 years
Yeah.
in bullet points. Yeah.
So having had like that 10-year experience, what advice would you have for a young filmmaker just starting out in the industry?
I mean, it's a real cliche to say, make, just keep making work, but it's like it's so true. If you can find a way where you're not waiting and you are making things and regularly, and everybody is attracted to someone who is prolific and is a doer. Everyone's always interested by those people and gravitate towards them. So I would figure that out. I'd figure how you can make something. The way I did it was I acted in my own stuff. I
Mhm.
made stuff that was £50 budget that could be made in one day, and I connected with people who I knew they'd be willing to do it for free, essentially. So that's the two tips: is just make a lot of stuff and connect with people who are like-minded. They speak the same language
Yeah.
creatively. And then another one, which seems a bit odd and maybe a bit too, self-help guru, but I think you need to come to terms with that. It's going to take a long time. It's going to take 10 years. It might not. You might be, you know, uh, you might make a film and it get bought and it turns into a TV show or whatever. But I think those things are very rare. So I think setting up your life, around the creative life, so it's sustainable.
Yeah.
Um, I think that's a big thing.
Yeah, sounds like good advice there. We are kind of coming to the end, but I just want to ask a few quick questions about film festivals, since that's obviously the season of scene at the minute.
Yeah.
Um, so like how's your experience at film festivals been, and do you have specific advice for submitting to film festivals?
I think, I think depending on what you're going to make, I think it's got a certain level that it's going to hit, at a certain festival, because film festivals are so competitive, and programmers are watching hundreds of films, sometimes for not that many slots, in a program. So, if you can make a short film short and you can make it, less than 10 minutes and make it very specific, um, that's going to excite, it's almost, you don't really want to work outside in, but it's almost thinking, what's going to excite a programmer, and what's going to be, what's going to be undeniable to them. We have to show this, essentially. And so I think if something is 6 minutes and it's got a really great concept, I think, you put yourself in a good position. I think I feel a little bit like a hypocrite because I've never really, I've played some festivals, but there's so many rejections involved with festivals as well. I think, if you submit to 20, if you can get into 3 or 4, like, you're doing a great thing. I think for quite a few years, I pushed festivals away and I was insecure of, oh, I'm not going to get accepted, so I'm not going to bother sort of submitting them. Which I think I was wrong in that respect. But I think I have also had great experiences at festivals. Um, so I don't know how helpful that is. I think focus on the making of the film, and depending on the budget or how the film turns out, putting the film online is just as valuable. But
Yeah.
if you receive funding, then obviously that would be, you'd be wrong to do that. You're better off taking the time and submitting, to 20 festivals, and figuring out which ones are right for you as well. It's like attend the festivals, and the British Film Council put out a really great list of certain festivals that are good to submit to. um, and figuring out where your short film will do well, you know. Um, so
Yeah.
do the research, I think.
Yeah. And what has been like your ultimate festival highlight so far in your career?
Well, I think you mentioned it at the beginning, which was winning, you know, winning the award for Jeremy was really nice um, at Bolton Film Festival. I really admire what Adrian and Zoe have done at Bolton Film Festival because it's not that older festival, but it's brilliant and they keep improving on it every year. So attending there with you know, the cinematographer and with the composer Nia and us winning that award was like, yeah, it was really, really special.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Hmm. And now this is the final question. What are your goals for the future in your filmmaking career?
Um, well, the easy answer is to just keep being able to make films. I've just made a film that I'm just finishing up now. So I'm in the position that every filmmaker's in, which is, you know, you hope that it will get accepted into film festivals. I'm really proud of the film, but that doesn't mean, you know, people are going to accept it just because I'm proud of it. So, yeah, I really want that film to get a decent premiere and then, you know, just have a good year writing. And I want to direct TV comedy. So sort of start meeting producers of TV comedy. And yeah, they're the short-term goals for this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, best of luck. And that brings us to the end of today's interview. So thank you very much, Harry, for your wonderful insights. And thank you to everyone for watching. If you haven't already seen Jeremy, A Nightmare, you can find a link to it on the BFI Film Academy Instagram, or else find it on Harry Sherriff's YouTube channel. And if you're interested in discovering more short films by talented young filmmakers, tickets are available for BFI Future Film Festival, that's commencing from the 20th of February to the 6th of March. These events will be taking place at BFI South Bank on the 20th to 23rd of February, and there are many others that are taking place across the UK and online till the 6th of March. Stay tuned for our next scene interview, in which Oshan will be talking to Rebs Fisher Jackson about their film Best Student. And thank you again to Harry, and thank you for watching.